Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Lots of people in the lobby this morning. I'll just wait for a few more people to get in and then we'll kick off the showcase. Good morning. Amazing. Okay, well, good morning all. Welcome to another spring showcase. Today we are partnering with Thames Water and SymTerra to find out more about how you can redefine how works on trunk sewers and their assets are communicated and leveraged within your organisation. So my name is Chloe Tooth and I am the Knowledge and Communications Manager here at Spring Innovation. For those of you who might not know already, we are the Innovation Centre of Excellence for the water sector, supported by all the water companies across the UK and Ireland, as well as the supply chain and academia, with the goal of enabling collaboration, removing duplication and accelerating innovation in the water sector. So we are the custodians of the Water Innovation Strategy 2050. For anyone who hasn't seen that document, we're going to pop some links in the chat to that in a second. So that lives on our website. It's got 7 themes with challenges that sit under those themes that we want to be solving within the sector. We also put out calls for innovation against those themes through our Spring accelerators. But today's service offering is all about knowledge sharing. So we have 2 aspects to that. The first being our knowledge library on our Spring platform, where there's a bank of over 50 case studies for you to go and learn from and utilise on innovation projects from across the sector, with over 190 more case studies currently in the pipeline. So this is constantly being updated. So please do go over and register and check that out. There'll be a link for that in the chat also, and that is open for everybody. The showcase recordings for a number of those projects and any supporting links or documents as well as slides will be shared alongside those case studies as well. So this is a 2-hour knowledge showcase event and we're happy to see there's 145 people registered for today's event with representatives from the Netherlands, New Zealand, Croatia and Australia. So welcome to the call and thank you so much for joining us. Today, you'll learn a little bit more about building bottom-up electronic asset management systems and how SymTerra have revolutionised data management within Thames Water by providing the ability to instantly generate reports with photos, locations and timestamps, which are easily shareable with key stakeholders. So this is showcase number 21 for Spring, and with over 2,700 people registered for these events, we're super happy and really proud with how these events are helping to disseminate knowledge from these innovation projects and accelerating learning across the sector. These showcases are all about being able to learn a little bit more about the project and take away those learnings and the knowledge and being able to embed those in your organisation. So that being said, we'll launch a poll at the end of this showcase to find out how interesting you found the information and also whether you're hoping to go away and use that afterwards. So please, when that comes through, do submit your answers at the end of that event, at the end of this event. So on to today's session, I'm just going to run through a quick agenda and introduce our speakers before I hand over to Matthew to kick off this showcase. So we're going to go into the importance of knowledge sharing, the context setting and pain points within this project, some further information and some demonstrations, into a whole section on lessons learned, an implementation timeline. We'll go into a short break and then into a Q&A session at the end. So please make sure that all the way through you're popping your questions into the chat and we'll do our best to pick those up in the Q&A section at the end. If for any reason that we don't get round to answering your question, what we'll do is we'll pop those all together with the case study live on our platform when that goes up. Okie dokie, so over to our speakers. So we've got Matthew Angel, Innovation Engagement Delivery Lead at Thames Water. We've got John Ryan, CEO at SymTerra. We've got Richard Dennett, Project Delivery Manager at Thames Water. And we've got Joe Taylor, Planning Operations Manager at Lanes Group. So without further ado, I will hand over to Matthew.
Thanks, Chloe. So, I'm Matt Angel. I'm the Innovation Engagement Delivery Lead for Thames Water. So my role is very, very linked into taking innovation and engaging with the wider innovation group across the industry, but also outside the industry. So next slide, please. So I really wanted to talk a little bit about knowledge sharing and why it's so important. As a water and wastewater industry, there's so much commonality that we have between our individual companies. So we perform the same operations, we unfortunately all have the same current issues, and we also face the wider future challenges that are faced by the industry, such as population growth, climate change, things like that. So we all have the same needs within the innovation space. We're really lucky that we work within an industry where there are fewer barriers to sharing best practice, because we aren't actually competing. We have segregated customer bases, and we are all looking to provide the best services for our customers. That said, there are some significant barriers that still exist within that. So we've obviously got competitive regulatory league tables, which means that we are actually competing against each other. Intellectual property rights, a lot of innovators will come to us, but they won't necessarily want to share as widely as we would like within the industry. And obviously we have strict NDAs within our projects that often stifle some of this knowledge sharing. And that's why things like today are really, really important, where we share what we can share as a business. But as innovators, our goal should be to share this innovation as wide as possible. We need to benefit wider society. We need to benefit all of our customers, not just small pockets of them. And that's why the Off-White Innovation Fund has been critical in terms of getting us to work together as an industry and benefit the whole of society rather than just a small proportion of our own customer base. So next slide, please. So what are the benefits? So there's multiple, they're not all documented here, but I just want to go over a few of them. So firstly, it's that nationwide benefits. So it's not just benefiting a small subsection of society. It's not just benefiting London. It's not just benefiting the Northeast. It's benefiting all of the entire country. It allows faster adoption of innovation, because if we're all talking, if we're all collaborating, then we actually can move that innovation forward and get it to BAU as quickly as possible. And obviously with that, two things come into that. So you can division of workload. Rather than all working on this separately, you can come together and you can actually divide that workload up, get it done quicker. And that eliminates that duplication of effort. I think if you were to look back at the industry maybe 10 years ago, a lot of companies were doing the same innovation, but not talking to each other. So this actually means that it removes that duplication of effort and means that we can work together. What that leads to is actually standardized operational improvements. So it means that it's not a single standard in a certain company. It becomes best practice within the industry, which means that the industry and performance as a whole can move forward, enabling us to learn from mistakes, also access to a greater pool of expertise. But the most important thing is it builds this culture of innovation sharing, so that we're not all keeping our secrets to ourselves. We're actually sharing them with the industry, we're sharing them with innovators, and we're actually moving the whole of innovation forward as a whole. And that's just really why it's really important that we have these knowledge showcases, just so that we can move that innovation from theoretical research to BAU, and where we're adopting these innovations at scale where they work. So that's all I'm going to talk about on knowledge sharing, but just wanted to emphasize that it's such an important thing, and you're obviously going to learn some really valuable stuff from the team today. So I will pass on.
Waiting for John to show himself. Look, I'll floor fill while John joins and we can see him on the camera in a moment. Yeah, good morning everyone, thanks for having me. So I'm Richard Dennett, I'm currently the head of strategic pumping stations and trunk sewers. And we'll talk a little bit about the journey that we've gone on with SymTerra and some of the data as we go, and I'll do a bit of introduction to my team. But yeah, thanks for having us, and look forward to taking you through it.
So we're going to run through the context and pain points, what we did, how we implemented the bits and pieces, and then we'll show some demos of the Thames Water side of things, Lanes as well. Joe is joining us from Lanes Group to show us how he's been using the system as well as one of the contractors, and then run down through the learnings and benefits, and then questions and answers afterwards to answer kind of any questions you got from the presentation. So moving on.
Cool, right.
Richard.
Yeah, so thanks. So just did a bit of intro. So strategic pumps and trunk sewers. So we run a catchment model, including the pumping stations and the trunk sewers in central London, travelling from west to east. Some of the largest and the biggest. So if you've heard of Abbey Mills, one of the original Bazalgette pumping stations, and all that trunk sewer network. Currently planned for about 10,000 sewer entries a year. And working in the sewers, I've been in the wastewater industry for just shy of 20 years, scarily, but in network for about 7. And working in these trunk sewers is hard. It's London. You can get called out because of the rain. We're tidally affected. We can't see the assets unless we get in there. So it depends how good our records are. And there's so much safety protocol that we go through. So hopefully that just gives a bit of an insight into ourselves and what we do and why we needed to go on a bit of a journey. Yes, next slide, John. So that picture was the start of our journey. We were paper-based, and it was hard work, basically. And we relied on those people who've done 40 years service to explain to us, how would you get in that location? What does that asset do? What does it look like? Where was that information stored? Where was it shared? And we all have those people in our team, and they're great people that we rely on, but it made it really, really difficult. We also do a lot of work for third parties, working in London, and, we've got Tideway Tunnel and we've got High Speed 2, which are, significant projects where we need to manage our network differently to facilitate them. And then it can happen at night time. And then getting that handover and that appreciation, what happened on that night shift for the day shift as people came in with some of our challenges. And so you can see there some of our key priority needs: reduce the number of confined space entries. It's one of the regs in the health and safety code for confined spaces, and we need good data and good understanding to do some of those challenges. Diverting the network, increase our asset condition awareness. So being able to have better visibility, understanding what's going on and making those decisions, and have those records and avoid that gentleman sat there, unfortunately. And the last thing, as John moves to the next slide, please, is, confined space work is expensive, it's labour intensive, and it's expensive. And these are the things we were looking at. How can we be better? And that drove us into 3 real key business needs. And the start of the journey, to be fair, was mainly just about those first 2, going from this paperwork-based, limited information, addressing those first 2, which was improved reporting and knowledge and sharing. And we just, with that paperwork-based, that individual with 20, 30, 40 years experience were great. It was just real challenges, getting good data, good information, good understanding, allowing people to learn and grow and plan that work effectively. Improve visibility of works. Like I was saying, the good examples there is where we have work at night time and you'd get part messages handed over, or you'd not get any messages, and to allow that visibility and learn what happened last time for when you come back 3, 6 or 9 months forward. And then this one is the one that we've been really stepping into probably for the last 12 to 24 months is, well, we've got that data, how we're going to now use it in terms of our information on that asset base, and how we're going to plan potentially our PPM work or our asset base for the future. And that was the 3 needs that we'd addressed, and we went on this journey to support. Yes, John, thank you. I'm not going to read all them out, but these were like the specific pieces that were identified. And one thing, I think, depending where you are in the business and your job role or what takes your fancy, each one of them will probably mean more something to you specifically. And the ones that I'll just call out, and I've probably done it already, is the time-stamped reports and real information. We wanted to know what happened, where, when, and how, basically as soon as possible, so we could feed back to our own teams or feed back to external suppliers. Pictures and videos, we needed that information, we needed that lessons learned. We don't want to send people to go and do a recce again at a location, so then we can plan the work for the future. We wanted that information to hand so we could hopefully go and get it right first time and reduce repeat visits. I actually called out the voice dictation. I think when John told me about this one, I probably looked at him and said, why do you want that? And from, one thing about this journey had all users involved, and particularly the technicians who have to use this product and go to work. And the voice dictation for me is a good one, in that it allows someone maybe with IT or wasn't comfortable with grammar just to say what they see. And it just seeing them, it allowed them to buy into the product for me, and allowed them to go on the journey with us to get the data. And then obviously the dashboard is one that I'm key in terms of the reporting, because every entry is a health and safety risk. Every entry is expensive, and we want to get it right first time, get our network correct, do the service for our customers and protect the environment. So they were the specifics that we were trying to look at and we wanted to achieve. Yes, please, John. Right, so I've got a little, so mine and John's journey, just a bit of introduction. We actually crossed for the Tideway Tunnel. And so I'm Thames Water, and we are doing work to support the Tideway Tunnel, which we are looking to connect in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And John was a Tideway project manager, and our journeys and our paths crossed with lampy stoppers for sewers, which were inflatable isolation bungs for the sewers. And we needed new technology or new methods of how getting into the sewers. And that's how our paths crossed. And then I think basically we stumbled on this opportunity then with SymTerra many months afterwards, John. So hopefully that's your recollection, and I'll hand over to you.
It is, and thanks to you. I think my actual recollection is staying in probably the most unusual hotel in Germany with the worst curtains I've ever seen in my life. We're testing it. I think there's a whole other presentation just on the lampy stoppers journey and protection of people working in the sewer environment. So I'm John Ryan. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer by trade. I've worked extensively in London, predominantly in engineering and project management roles. I've spent a lot of my career kind of being on existing infrastructure with kind of, old passenger stuff, 200-year-old stuff, whether that's in the sewer network or within the railway environment side of things. As Richard said, I was on the Tideway side of things, so I was coming in, knocking the crap out of his network and ruining everything and so on. And I must say that when we did come onto the network, onto the Thames Water team, it was a bit of a breath of fresh air for us, that it was a team that was interested in helping us succeed in what we were doing. And I find that sometimes when you come on as a large project in another organization, there's a lot of pushback on that side of things. And I must say that Richard's team, the operations team as a whole, were just open with sharing and helping us succeed on that project. And, we might even do a future one on just on how that working relationship went. But without the Thames's team, their involvement and their massive amount of knowledge share with us, we'd have had a lot more difficulties delivering that. So going on into us, SymTerra side of things, Sarah and myself founded the company 3 years ago. We've both come from some of the coolest projects and companies in the UK. So we've worked for Mason, we worked for Lang & Work, TfL, Network Rail, Priory Group as well in the healthcare. We've worked on some great projects in Tideway, Olympics, Crossrail, etc. and stuff. We're very much from the industry, over 25 years experience of it. We just kind of got bogged down a bit too much in engineering and project management roles of doing admin. And none of us joined the industry to do admin. We kind of ended up doing it more and more as time went on. And what we wanted to do was the cool stuff on the right-hand side. So river walls in London, try to make sure that they're fit for purpose and that we can do our tunnelings. We got the tunnel projects there in the middle, the before and after pictures of the secondary lining at 38 degrees temperature and over 100 and something percent humidity, and then the finished article down at the bottom right-hand side and stuff. But what actually we end up doing is a ton of admin, a ton of documentation, a ton of paperwork that takes us away from helping our teams deliver work safely and efficiently on the ground. And one of the things that kind of drives that from us as an industry as a whole is that the communication side of things is kind of broken. What we've got is the office teams, Richard, myself, others here on the call, with our schedules, our permits, our traffic management plans, documents, forms, drawings, etc., being pushed down to the site team. And in response, what we've got then is the phone calls, WhatsApp messages, emails, and maybe a few PDFs from a reporting system coming back. And kind of Richard mentioned earlier on is that we've got nighttime working going on. So what we plan to do X, what the team at night achieved Y, and what's the delta Z, we never really quite got up front because we had partial information, not the full picture, and that creates more paperwork, more trackers, more documents, and more admin side of things. So the idea of SymTerra was to create this kind of feedback loop for the teams on the ground to go out and be able to communicate what they're doing, how they're doing it, make it as simple and as easy as possible for that to happen. So we've been lucky, I suppose. We've kind of hit onto a good thing of effectively being WhatsApp for the built world environment. And we've been lucky to go up and work on some really cool companies, projects here and stuff like that. So we've got a number of projects down here in London with Kier, Thames Water and SymTerra. Up north, we've got D2 Global working with us on the Trans-Pennine route upgrade project and stuff. And then we've got other companies then in other industries, from housing developments through to sods planter and other kind of groups and bits and pieces of that. So it's kind of really cool. It's spread across the whole place, like, but it is just focusing on the communication side of things and what we've got. It's been acknowledged by Bloomberg as one of the top 25 startups in the UK. So we're up there with all the greats such as Monzo and OnlyFans. And then Google this year has announced a partnership with us as well. So we're one of their partners within the Built World division of their business. And we kind of work with them to enable their clients and ours to get the most out of their data. And the key thing is creating a pipeline of information from site back to the client in a way that adds the most amount of value to the client. So whether you want the information in SharePoint, OneDrive, put into Power BI dashboards, or use it even to go off and train AI models, this is where we can kind of come in and help with that side of things. That's a brief kind of thing on the SymTerra side of things. So I'm going to go back to Richard to kind of we start talking with you how we went forward, I think.
Yeah, so and it probably was a bit of a whirlwind on the Thames piece, what we're accountable for, and bringing in John's piece from SymTerra and all those learned experiences. And, you know, so part of this is about the journey and the lessons learned. And I think this has been a journey, a true collaborative journey. And now I should have remembered how long, but we've been on this journey for quite a few years. And the collaboration has been there throughout the journey and has involved everyone from the end users to the managers. And I think, you know, the good thing about this and this collaborative journey is we knew what we did in the sewers. We roughly knew what we wanted out of it, but we didn't know what that would look like. And we were able to work together to develop that. And, you know, we change our mind, which was probably a frustration sometimes to Sarah, that we change our mind because we didn't necessarily know what to do, but then the ability to come back, review, refresh, change, and develop it. So it has been a collaborative journey that we're still on now, tweaking this product to get the best out of it for our work. Next slide, John.
So here's a few examples of some of the slides in the development of what we're looking at, which was initially kind of, I suppose we call it the Safe Sewer Entry app side of things. And we work very closely with Richard and his team. We had Sally Dobbin Edwards as well, helping kind of being our conduit and our contact bits and pieces within his team to help us kind of do those things. But here's kind of some examples of it. We focused very much on the team and how they would use it. And what we noticed about past tech that we had used in past projects, it was always very much designed for the top-down approach of things from management downwards. It was designed by IT people, designed around the office and the management needs, as opposed to looking at what is it like on site and how it's going. Now, I come from a rail environment, you know, working on Christmas Day in the snow with lots of heavy machinery and trains flying around me in different directions on different tracks and everything kind of being quite busy. You know, trying to type out a full report on a BlackBerry at the time was quite difficult and quite clunky. So what we want to do is make sure we focused on designing up something that was fit for the team on the ground, but also captured what was very important for Richard and a team in the office to help them make better decisions. Richard said there's over 10,000 entries a year being done across the network. These are confined space entries. These are dangerous works. You don't want to put people unnecessarily into these kind of positions. And if you are, you want to make sure they've got the right information to hand. So we capture it as simple as possible, put a lot of time, a lot of effort into it, a lot of testing. I think at one stage we looked like a bunch of drug dealers in the office with about 4 or 5 different phones around desks, making sure that we could just make sure it worked across every single device that we could possibly get hold of. On the other side of things, we want to make sure we're capturing is correct and what the output is also working for Richard and the team. So we've got a form builder in the system, so we make sure we captured the right information. I think the early feedback was very much don't overload a team with 50 questions. When they've got options to have non-mandatory questions, they typically will skip them anyway, so why bother including them? And we worked very closely with past experience of over about 20,000 reports that we've done previously to be able to go off and shape what is the best and cleanest and simplest way of doing it. We're going to show some examples of that later on and stuff like. So the idea was to go off and make sure that it was fit for purpose for the teams on the ground, but also for the office team that Richard and his guys could actually get the value out of it and stuff as well.
And I think just this picture just paints it. This is the team, the people that go out every day, go into that London network in all sorts of weather conditions, and they were engaged from the start to be part of that journey. So when we talk about a change project or bringing something on board and collecting the right data, that the reason this has been successful and the engagement has been high is that we've dealt with the right people at the right time. And these gentlemen who go out and do this every day are subject matter experts in how you go into sewers, what's in that network, and what information is required for me for the future. And that was the aim, is to get the right people involved, so that data we had for future planning of our assets and asset management was good and was purposeful. And you can just see the team involved, and they weren't forced to smile. They genuinely enjoyed these sessions and to provide that data. So thanks, John.
There was a whole thing. I think the smiles were most done to the hot cross bun breakfast roll with bacon, which is probably the best mix of things ever. So we kind of, the lads helped us develop a lot, as Richard said, like, and stuff. And that user engagement, understanding how they function, how they use it and stuff, was very, very important. And we designed the app around them and make sure it was fit for purpose for the teams on the ground. So whether it was a 16-year-old apprentice or 65-year-old person who says, I don't like tech, but can really use the tech and understand it, we made sure that it was as simple and as easy as possible for them. It wasn't intimidating. It wasn't something that you open up and there's 500 buttons and you don't know what to press, and you press the wrong thing, you get it wrong and stuff. So we very much focused in around the simplicity, the multiple stakeholders as well, to allow as much people, so whether that's the employees in Thames or the subcontractors come on board, the data interoperability, so we do capture it, can you actually use it where you need it, when you need it, and then also the sharing side of things, of being able to go off and share with the people who need it and stuff. And the key thing here is we need to go off and make sure the teams are working safely on the ground. And if you don't have access to the right information, then we're not going to go off and help achieve that kind of goal and stuff. So these are kind of a few screenshots, bits and pieces. The idea is to go off and make it very simple, very clean, be able to capture photographs, videos, and bits and pieces. We do have a quick video of that to go off and kind of show you how it actually kind of works on the ground side of things. But we kind of very much trying to make it look like most other apps that they've got on their existing devices. And that means that it's less intimidating, less of a problem, and people are more confident in using it because they're familiar with the layout and flow of bits and pieces.
Oh, this is me. And I think, hopefully just building that picture of getting those user requirements, building a system works, and then where did we go next on that journey? And the next part of that journey was getting that useful information and getting those reports. And we remember that terrible image of sat someone down with lots of paperwork. This is available to all who want to see this information in our system. But for myself and the management team, we can look at this data live on our system, look at it live on our phones, and get a daily report in the morning with a PDF report. And it just, like you say, that visibility, that understanding, that progress just became so much more apparent overnight by you implementing the system. All right, thanks, John.
So when we had that one of the proof of concept side of things in place, this was kind of timed to go off and start getting it rolled out and stuff across the teams and start seeing, does it actually work? Does it actually do what we had planned it to go off and do? And then we're kind of looking at then like what we want to get further from it. So we started using the basics. We got the basics up and running, the teams buy-in, their support. We refined, we improved, we optimized it to work around the teams on the ground and what Richard was kind of looking for. And that's kind of where we then kind of come up from the safe sewer app and the entries was, well, what do we actually need to go off and look at and what's important to the teams on the ground? So then we started looking at assets. So this is where we kind of start within the exciting world of electronic asset management systems. And typically, for those who have kind of worked on these before, they're quite massive, quite complex, quite difficult to go off and use. And the update of the information coming through has always been hard to go off and either access it or provide updates. So we kind of took that out as being a challenge in our side of things. And what we need to do is make sure that we start as a bottom up. We want to capture from the ground what's happening on the assets and report that back up into the asset management system, as opposed to the asset management system being traditionally a desktop piece of software that is updated in the office with a lot of documentation and not always available to the teams on the ground. So what we started looking at is looking at the assets themselves and looking at the functionality around what's important, what we need to capture with. And what we quickly kind of came up with is we kind of need to know everything about the assets. We need to know where, what, who did it, what reports were done on it. So whether it was a permit to operate, isolate an asset, whether it was monthly inspections, annual inspections, refurbishment, modernizations, decommissioning, etc. We need to go up and have a timeline of the assets as a kind of a different way of seeing things and seeing the information and making it more usable for the managers who are sending their teams in to do the works, and the teams on the ground being able to look at the asset before they go in and have to go undertake the works. So we kind of, part of this, and kind of mentioned the data pipeline, is that a lot of the existing asset management systems are not cross-referenced. They don't play nicely with others. They don't have that kind of interoperability side of things as much. So what we want to do is kind of add a lot more functionality within it as is needed for the teams. So whether you want to link it with Google Maps, what3words is becoming very popular within the infrastructure world, and even systems in like SAP for inventory and other bits and pieces, it's all kind of available. So you can see a few screens there of linking it to what3words locations on the ground, linking it to activities as well. So if you've got scheduled work, so you want to kind of have that kind of thing in the system, it's available. And then the assets themselves. So it was very simply, I'm doing traffic management relating to 4 assets for works later on. This evening, you can just link it to it. So the next time I'm doing traffic management on that street or on those assets, I can use that past work to inform my method statements and risk assessments to make sure I can work a little bit more efficiently the next time and a bit safer for the teams on the ground, or replicate what's the best practice for that area as well. And as we started building this one, and we got this pipeline, we started building out the dashboards. We started kind of with the base information. As I mentioned earlier on, everything that we capture is usable in a dashboard in some way. So if question 14 on a certain form is very important to the business and you want to see a pie chart, that can be brought out in bits and pieces. Each of the dashboards are custom built for each of our clients to make sure that it actually adds value to them. I'd love to say that there's a standard weekly, monthly look ahead for every business out there, but it's just not the case. Every company has a different way of doing things and a different things that are important to them. So we very much focus in on delivering what's actually important. What makes Richard's life easier, I suppose, at the end of the day, and how can we go off and reduce his workload and also allow him to focus on what matters in supporting his team and what's kind of going on there. So,
thanks. Go on, John.
So a key kind of focus really is kind of like allowing Richard to be aware and prepare for the works. And we've got kind of this level of asset availability and what the recent reports were done for the teams. Again, we'll be showing this on a video anyway to kind of run you through it and stuff. But it is kind of allowing you to go off and have the awareness of that one and preparing for bits and pieces. And then we've got the ability then for Richard to go off and prioritise and report on what's happening and to reduce his workload side of things as well, like and stuff. But if you want to jump in there, Richard, anything?
No, look, spot on. I think, you know, it's allowing the team now. We started, if you remember, those 3 priority pieces about getting daily reports and understanding it. Now we've built up records and a few years of history. We're now allowed to start looking at that plan, the work and the data, and look at those improvements. And it's allowing us to have those data-led conversations that we all love to have, and asking those whys, why are we doing that and why can we do that differently? And that's where some of our exciting conversations are going, and that's some of the interesting challenges on what we do. Can we do it smarter? Can we use the technology? But this has given us that insight to have those conversations with a mass of photos, because the team love taking photos, to actually explain what does it look like below that surface in London, and what are the challenges to accessing and maintaining that piece of equipment, and readily available to all. So yeah, thanks, John.
Yeah, you touched on the point about the photograph side of things. On our daily digest that Richard and the team get at 6 a.m. every morning, it's got a photo of a day. And when the teams are seeing these photographs coming in, they're seeing, oh, my manager is getting to see these pictures that I didn't take very well or something else. And we've seen a massive increase in the quality of the photographs. The teams are taking a bit more pride in what they're taking and how they're sharing it. Richard mentioned the voice dictation. We're seeing some great notes coming through because a team don't have to spell everything, they don't have to type it all out, they don't have to do that. And that reduces the level of access to technology and record keeping. That allows them to share updates and bits and pieces. There's some fantastic ones in the system that are coming through from the guys of it's war and peace on what they did that day. But in 6 months' time, when you're going back to that location, it's absolutely massive benefit that I can see around it. I got 15, 20 pictures. I got a quick video, especially of the airtight manhole covers, which is fantastic to see the testing of that. You can hear the noise and see the manhole staying in place. And we've got that kind of help around it that builds a bigger and bigger picture of what's kind of going on the ground. So what I'm going to go up and do now is give you a quick, we are running slightly ahead of time anyway, which is great. So I'm going to go up and show you 2 quick videos, one on the mobile side of things, of how the mobile works and how the team on the ground kind of see it and how they do a quick planned preventative maintenance activity on a penstock. And then I'll show you then what that looks like on the web as well for the teams on the ground. So let's press play on this one. So this is the mobile app. What you can see is a feed, a timeline of every activity that you've got in here. It's only got 5 buttons on it. There's a purple plus button where you can press and add an update. So you can add photographs and videos from it in the bottom left button, or simply go off and add a gallery view. So you can select the relevant pictures you want to go off and highlight within this update. And then if I want to, I can just select a picture and edit that picture and provide a kind of a red line markup on it as well. So you get the ability to go off and circles, squares, add text, or just simply drag your hand over it and just kind of highlight an issue or a problem or something you want to go off and identify in the thing. Tags, it's like using hashtags on the system. It's really simple, clean and easy to use. It shows you the most common ones used for this particular catchment. And the teams on the ground kind of typically use it to go off and highlight different areas. Then we've got a few different areas to go off and choose from. So here's activities. So this is where we are based in North London. And then just looking down towards one of the Thames Water sites, I can highlight where I'm saying is going to be the penstock location using what 3-word squares, but also I can highlight where I parked the van. So when we got parking tickets, we got evidence of where I parked and what I did. So here you can see all the what 3 words being highlighted. You can add activities or you can add assets as well onto the system. So this is very powerful. We've got all assets across 110,000 kilometers of sewer network. Now you can search by the asset number, or if I want, I can search by the location, the postcode of it, the asset type, and so on. So the idea is that the team on the ground don't have to go hunting through big lists. They can make it simple and straightforward. When I want to add a report on this particular asset, I can just pick the PPM one. And then this is pretty much a standard report side of things that you all know and love and try and do it. And this is where we kind of worked really well with Richard and the team, was to go off and make sure they had the minimum amount of work for the team on the ground to capture, because their job is to go off and deliver work safely, not to do a ton of admin. So drop down menus, tick box bits and pieces, highlighting, choosing one or many bits and pieces. And where we need to, we put in the tech side of things. We also ask questions kind of in reverse order. So one of the ones here, this one, is where you would highlight where there's a problem, not highlight everything that's okay. So this reduced the workload for the team, and it allows then Richard to focus in on there's ladder access issues here, other bits and pieces, problems and so on to highlight and stuff. So we always kind of thought about what we're capturing on the mobile app and what value does that actually add to the team in the office. Red, amber, green, so simple traffic light system. One of the things that we did is that we put it green, amber, and then red, so that the teams on the ground don't have to go off and slide more than they have to. And then you got your final summary page then as well. If you're happy, you can then go off and press send, phone in the back pocket, and then crack on with the rest of your day. So that's just basically a very, very quick PPM being filled in. I think if I look at the timing on that one, it kind of works out at being about 1.5 minutes to go off and do that. And the idea is that the least amount of effort that a team on the ground need to put into something, the more inclined they are to go off and use it. And as we've seen when we're working with Richard, the team and other clients, is that when we bring out a feature that improves the working for the teams on the ground, we've seen a bump in usage, more photographs, more information coming through from them, because it's simpler and easier to use, and they're more inclined to go off and use it. So looking at the web side of things, so this is kind of more for the office side of the teams. Obviously, anybody who has access to mobile also can log in on the web and they can see the information, but we very much kind of split out some of the use cases between the two different parties here. So very, very similar look and feel here. So this is the same timeline as we saw before, with the options that you have got a search bar. So any bit of text you can search for within any update across the entire catchment. And you have the ability then to go off and filter for, let's say, RAG status or the hashtags that we showed earlier. So if I'm just picking on the penstock one and picking for the planned preventative maintenance and other activities only, it'll then bring up every bit of work that has the hashtag penstock and it is a maintenance activity side of things. So if I go into looking at Luke's one here from Joyce Green. So Luke was one of our earliest kind of users on the system. We've got his photographs here as well, so you can flick down through it and have a look. You can pop out the pictures as well. So we always want to make sure that the photographs are always accessible. You don't want to be squinting at a thumbnail trying to make out what is going on. And then because we always love a good PDF, every question, every answer, every photograph, and everything else is all captured in there. This makes it really easy to go off and share the information then across multiple teams and multiple parties. So if somebody hasn't got access to the system, but you need to share that with a supplier, you can do. Now we got this reply sub function. This is on both mobile and web, and it means that you can go off and add in extra information, provide additional information and other bits and pieces against Luke's update and stuff. So it's got all the same functionality as the mobile, but it's also got the ability to go off and attach files on the web. So if you're doing penstock inspections and structural assessments and you wanted the engineer's assessment at the end, you can simply attach that then against the asset. Now, this is kind of the cool part of the asset management side. I can simply click on one of these assets from Luke's update, and it will then open up a full feed of every update against that particular asset in one place. So here's all the feed against that one. So if I was going to go back there again in 6 months' time, after Luke did his work last week, I can go off and have a look at this one, see where the red amber issues are, see any kind of problems, and then be able to go off and jump on those issues quickly and easy. Again, if there's a ton of updates, I can just go off and just do the filters based on the search bars on the very top side of things, make it easy for me to go and find what needs to be done. So that's kind of the basic level of capturing information, providing updates, adding additional files. And this is kind of where we start getting into the fun world of additional kind of information. So this is kind of like our standards dashboard that's available to all of our clients, simple filters and bits and pieces, allowing teams just to quickly jump in to find things. And then when we're looking at the PPM side of things for Richard's team and operations, we're looking at kind of three kind of core areas. So this is the one that we're able to show today, which is asset availability, PPMs, and a backlog report. So quickly, Richard can see what's his asset availability across the 3 different networks and what's the total one. And then within the last reports that are being done by the teams on the ground, you got this live feed of everything up to date in one place, with the ability to go off and click on one of those hyperlinks to go off and bring up the relevant PDF document. And if I want, read the document, read the report side of things, and then with the photographs of the thumbnails on the PDF, I can simply just go off and click on it, and that will then bring up the full version of the image. And what we don't want to do is have information locked away that's just not available to people that need it and stuff. And it's amazing how much information we can get out of a good picture against an asset that would make or break some piece of work for later on this evening side of things. Now my mouse just kind of doesn't do anything for a second, so I gotta wait for my to catch up. So within the planned preventive maintenance, this is the important part here. What are we doing? Where are we doing it? So we've got months by catchment. So where are we doing? What's trending? Obviously, this is a very unusual side of things in operations and facilities management type business where it's weather dependent. So we can see that so far in the month of April, 228 assets were inspected up until midweek last week. 91 were still remaining. Some of those, as we've all kind of discovered, developers pouring tarmac over manhole covers and stopping access, being weathered off, cars parked in wrong places, etc. You can go off and filter. So I can look at covers. So 16 inspected, 27 remain. And of the remaining ones, there they all are on the list at the bottom. And the last report there is on the bottom right-hand side. So we can see what it is. Again, we can bring up maps of this one as well. So they're kind of hidden at the moment on this show and tell, but we'd have maps of visibility. So if I wanted to, I could go down to a certain postcode, a certain area, and quickly wrap up a lot of those ones. And then we're looking at the backlog. So what's kind of overdue? Which assets couldn't we get to due to accessibility issues, due to problems with other ancillary assets and so on, and what needs to be kind of looked at. So when you've got a spare moment, you can kind of look into this one and look at all my pen stocks. I've got 43 of them are kind of overdue inspections. When was it last reported? And then by priority level, by catchment location and so on. So this allows you to go off and focus in on, if I had some spare time next week, what can I kind of jump onto, or why can't I look at those assets and stuff and provide them with additional information and stuff. So that is basically on our side, bits and pieces. So that's all well and good. We got the client organization and tech bits and pieces, and now we've got to go and look and see how we can go off and work with the contractors and see if it adds value to these teams. So I'm just going to introduce you to Joe. We met Joe as part of these works in a rollout with Richard and his team. And Joe was kind of one of the early adopters and people kind of coming on board to see if it actually helped him and his team. Was it another bit of tech that a client is pushing out that's adding no value in bits and pieces? So this is kind of where was a big test for us to make sure that we could actually work with and play nicely with others and stuff, because without the contractors delivering the works, we're kind of nowhere in the thing. So I'm going to stop waffling now, Joe.
Okay. Yes, good morning. I'm Joe Taylor. I'm the operations manager for Lanes Group, and we work in collaboration with Richard and his trunk sewer teams. We was introduced to SymTerra through Richard because previously we would receive emails and photos and we'd have to put them on a Word document, which was time consuming. With SymTerra, it's done in the field, all in one place. It's one simple download and send, or we've actually shared our folders with Thames who've got access to view live data and photos and track how jobs are going on with activities, Gantt charts, and all different bits and pieces. The engineers found it really simple to use in the field, which makes it easy. And the information is we have no problems with information coming through every single minute of the day. So that's all good. And this is, sorry, John, can you speak?
Yeah, I'll just start the video for you.
Yeah. So this is just a video showing how I use the SymTerra in the office. So this is, it's a trunk sewer folder, and we use activities where we put all our trunk sewer program work in. So this is a job we're doing at the moment over in Upper Street, Thames. So we're just going to gallery and we're looking at the photos, what the engineers are doing. So this shows a sewer that we found that needed cleaning. And then we've got a photo where it shows the sewer's been cleaned, a pre and post survey. I can then go in and see where they were working from 3 Watt words. We can then go in and check the plant on site, the engineers on site. You've got IB entry numbers on there, which were issued by the independent team. All the comments from the engineers on site. It's all there, you see. And then any following works. This is shared with all the engineers, have access to this, and anybody who's going to the next shift can see this, all the photos. And there's more photos from in the sewer cleaning. You should go to. Also, we attach the risk assessments and method statements in there. More photos. So basically, anybody can go and look at these photos, go to the site and see where we are for sewer cleaning. So this is where we attach the risk assessments and approval forms. As you see here, we've got the so all the engineers have access to all the approval forms. So this is the approval form issued by Thames Water, which gives you all the conditions that we've got to work to. So this is briefed on site to all the engineers with site times in for what they're working to and who issued the approval form. They've also got the site-specific risk assessment, which is again briefed to all the engineers and every one of them has access to. So you've got your brief description of works, which tells them exactly what they're doing out there, the map of where they're working, and then the conditions, the approval form, and our conditions, the complexity of the job, which is a medium because we're working to tidal times, nearest hospital, type of entry, equipment we're using, and yeah, a few other bits and pieces. So that's all accessible to all engineers on site. It's a lot better when we use paper, because if we had a paper copy, it could get dirty. We still do a paper sign off, but all the engineers got access to this and read and sign it after. This is the dashboard that shows we're working. So we can click on these and see, oh, the screen's gone. So we can click on these and see where everyone's working and how many inches we've done over the network. That's good. Oh, that's about each one. I've gone through it there. So this shows up. So this shows the Lanes Group Confined Space checklists that we do, and it can how many inches we've done on one job, and we can go through and check all the recordings and the gas monitors and bits and pieces. Cool. So this is showing how many inches we've done on that job and where we've done them. It's a sign-off sheet, photo to put done the sign-off, briefs. It's the check-in, so we've got a check-in feature of a logbook, so we know who's on site, what's on their clock doing now. And, yeah, I think I've gone through most of that, John. Pass it back to yourself.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, I think one of the key things you kind of highlighted was that you're using the activities side of things to link the relevant documentation, RAMs, method statements, documentation to not just the activity, but also down to the asset, so that later on we can see how we did that work the last time. Was it successful? And then we can use that then as the methodology for the next time. Or if we highlight that there's a problem with grating or a ladder, we then know for the next time that this is something to be watched out for, is put onto the risk assessment, and then we can use that then to go off and plan a safer entry for the next time and so on. So it's quite cool to go off and see the activities feature being linked in with the asset side of things and how it's kind of growing. I think.
Yeah. Push the next slide, John. Push the next slide. So,
Here we go.
Conscious we can end up covering a lot in that small period of time, and I think, you know, Lanes, Joe Taylor in particular, but Lanes is a key partner of ourselves who do a lot of work in our sewer network. And it's not just Lanes, but it's our other partners that when they're doing this work, we're given access to. And you know, that is, so we want the data for the future. So our successors or future plans, people can get that, and it's all in one place. But it's also just shows the ease of capturing it and the ease of the system, that actually we can get people on board using this app, using this data capture quite easily, so we can truly have a full, if you like, asset inventory, history, data, records, say system of works, what did you do in that location in one place. And that leads you to, we just got a few slides on the benefits to come through there, this is the learning, should I say, and then a few of the benefits come from there. I think, you know, IT projects, particularly for someone like myself, operations can be a bit like, oh my gosh, an IT project, here we go. And I think, you know, on this journey here, what we've been able to do is start small with tangible benefits, what we need to do, and work with people, our own team and external suppliers, to develop accordingly and take people on that change journey as we learn and we grow and we go forward. We spoke earlier about getting the key people involved. There's been multiple departments within Thames and our suppliers, Lanes and others, to say what works, what data would you capture, our health and safety teams, to make it work. The third bullet point there, we did have a project manager, a lady called Sally Dodman-Edwin, who helped embed this and put in a significant amount of effort to drive that forward and give a cohesive message to all teams. And without that person, you know, if you're managing change, you need someone to take that reins, lead it and take it forward. It would have been a more challenging journey. That there's no getting away from that. And so that definitely was a big, you know, shout to Sally and a great success story to take that change management and own it forward. The champions, we all know, again, if you have those champions, you start getting them talking to the teams, bring the team on board, and they understand the benefits. And the last one there, I go back into it. I'm not a technical IT type person in that respect, but we knew we needed something better. And by working with people from the industry who understood it, from construction, from safety, but also from IT infrastructure, we were able to take ourselves on that journey. And they were the key lessons, really. Next one, please, John. It's got my name on this, John, to talk through, but I think without going too much through this, I think John has mentioned it earlier. I think the one thing that strives through on the success of the learning is the collaboration, and that is people like myself, Joe, John, all wanting to achieve the same thing, which is a system that works, that provides data, and people want to wake up and use in the morning. And then me and Joe are probably a bit excitable about trunk sewers. We do love trunk sewers, but ultimately the learnings were about just working together and bringing that collaboration on board. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, John, really.
Yeah, I think it was kind of working with your team on the ground. I think we've seen IT projects going wrong in past jobs where it was led by the IT department, pushing it down to the users on the ground, as opposed to user developed kind of stuff coming back from the people who are meant to be benefiting from it all. So I think we kind of took that as being a kind of a challenge on our side to spend more time with your teams on the ground to understand it. I suppose luckily we've been in your industry. We do know what the challenges are. We do know the difficulties in it. We do know the problems that you kind of face, and not all of it, but we've got a very good feeling for it. And we have been delivering stuff like Tideway and stuff beforehand. So it's been quite beneficial for us to work with your teams. That shaped a much better system that's kind of benefited everybody. We continue to work across all of our clients as a way forward. We've definitely taken that as being our key thing, that we have that feedback from it. So on our side, we got kind of Garrett leading our operations side. He's a ex-safety manager, NEBOSH trained, the whole lot, comes from site, and he works very well with the team on the ground. We've very much taken that. We want to be part of a solution within a business to be able to help them kind of get the most out of it and stuff. And the electronic asset management systems have always been such a huge part of businesses and so difficult and such a challenge. We wanted to try and unlock the bottom-up approach of the human-centric information. So what are the teams actually experiencing on the ground? How is the asset performing? What the problems are? And how we can go off and use that then to empower the teams on the ground to share what's going on with management, with the rest of the organization, so that people then can go off and collectively use that pot of information to make the right things. And I suppose we got lucky, you know, we're working with yourself, your teams. We also had, like, you know, Joe and his team kind of adopting and providing a lot of feedback. I think I know that we changed some of the fonts and stuff like that on the PDFs, and Joe was straight on the phone to us, giving out to us about some of bits and pieces of being passionate about getting the things. So, you know, we like that. We find that very useful and beneficial. And, you know, the goal is to go off and develop a system that is adding value to the business, is actually providing tangible benefits to it and stuff. I think we didn't come from tech. We didn't come from a software background. I think one of the big learnings that we did have was to go off and start working with the IT teams, cyber security, procurement, and other bits and pieces up front and very quickly with the teams in parallel with the actual end users. And that'll kind of make things go a bit quicker and smoother for us. And it allows us to go off and integrate it across the whole business in a faster kind of manner and stuff. So going to Joe, here's some points from yourself, Joe. Going to take over.
Yeah. So as you can see, we've so far, since we started with SymTerra, we've completed 32 projects. We've had 6,004 updates, 45,602 photos, and the free WORS location. That alone has probably saved hundreds of hours in admin work, transferring different data into the same place, where it's all just been done on one. Also, with the clients engaging, we can share stuff with Richard, with the teams themselves. If, for instance, Thames have done a PMI, big PMI, and want to have the cleans done, they can find out within view it and realise we've done the work to replan their work. We've got the ability to create our own forms where if we get a job where the scope changes, we can go in and change that risk assessment online and it will automatically update on the phones. We can get the key information out, download, and we can put it on OneDrive or they can share it. With the activities, we do the plan maintenance, so we can just have that one activity, the one job in a program for going on years and years and years. And you could just drop down that box and see, we went down 23, 24, 25 to see exactly where people are working, what was done, the confined space entry we done, traffic management, bits and pieces. Thames Water have access to all of our data, and the free what words is really handy because sometimes we could be doing a clean that is 1,000 metres long, but we work under one address. We can then get free what words to find exactly where they're working on that evening if we're 200 metres down from the original address we're working. That's good. Brilliant.
So just going on, I suppose, across, we got another 3 or 4 slides on these bits and pieces of the benefits side of things. This is kind of where Joe and Richard just jump in, where we kind of see it like and stuff. I think from our side, we're kind of very much enabling Richard and Joe to have better visibility, faster, easier access to real-time reporting, as well as the nighttime shift side of things. And what we kind of highlight here, I suppose, is the client benefits and the contractor benefits side of things. I don't know, Richard, do you want to jump in on the client one?
Yeah, I think the top of the slide summarises it. You know, the visibility, the pace, and the flexible real-time reporting is the benefits, but it's not just ourselves, it's with our stakeholders who are doing equally a vast amount of work in the sewer network. And we said earlier, doing these work in the sewers, you know, Joe just talked about, you know, doing 1,000 metres, takes weeks and months of planning. So that we want to get it right, we want to take those lessons, and we want to do it as most effectively and efficiently as possible. And you know, that we can see there the connected workforce and the evidence and the history record established, we can have a far better, purposeful, real-time conversation on that asset, on that planned work, on that reactive, which might be customer environmental led, as soon as that update is done. Joe's been doing work in our network cleaning for a long time. I don't know, Joe, I've known you at least 7 years, so at least 7 years, I think, if not longer, on the trunk network. But I don't know. But our conversations in the last 12 to 24 months of what's required, what's the challenges, are far more effective and efficient. It is, we can literally get to the problem, understand it, and ask ourselves, how can we navigate that accordingly? And I don't know if you've got anything, Joe, to add till we move on to the next slide.
Yeah, no, again, just for me, it's just simplified everything with, you know, Richard might say, I need an update now. Previously, I'd have to go and download photos, get a PDF doc, copy and paste the remarks, put it all together while Richard's waiting. Now it's just one simple download or one share, and Richard's got access to everything that we can do. No,
thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe. And then we come on to the next one, and you know, an audit trail is absolutely key for what we do and understand. We understand, you know, some of the challenges and the scrutinies on the water industry at the moment, and some of the questions. And so this allows us to have these reports to hand, to understand the work, to audit ourselves, or provide explanations to external stakeholders as well. And I think we mentioned earlier, the quality of the reports has grown and continues to grow as well. And like you said, we've got the availability to share it easily amongst ourselves. There's a lot of defensibility, and I know John is always there about, but actually if we've got a record, we can clearly show what we've done, and that allows me and Joe to have a really good tangible conversation about the performance of that shift or that work that's required. Thanks, yeah, John.
The idea of the commercial defensibility is that you get paid for the work that you do on it, like it removes the arguments or the the noise around things, and it just cuts down through it, going, well, this is the shift, this is the work we did, here are the before and after pictures of what the team did, this is how we set it up, this is how we did it safely, and so on. So we found that across the board, that the commercial defensibility ends up just becoming, it turns into from commercial defensibility into collaborative working between different teams and different organizations and stuff like. So hopefully it'll kind of move towards a more of a collaborative approach than an adversarial approach in other industries and other kind of projects that we've kind of seen. So then we're kind of going to kind of like the risk awareness side of things. I think, Joe, you're very much going to talk about the what three words and locations and the assets and bits and pieces and stuff like, and how we can provide better overview of things.
Yeah, so again, we might get a job come in at one address, and we might end up 1,000 meters away from that one address. And previously, you'd have no way. You might get a manual number, you might have access to GIS, so you can easily put your 3 what words in, which will take you to exactly where they are. You can then use the Google to get the postcode and work out where they are. You can change your job address to that. That has just simplified everything. Instead of searching, dragging a map along, trying to find where you think they are, it pinpoints exactly where they're working, which is a massive saving benefit as well on time.
Yeah, and one thing we did use with your updates and others, like for the assets and locations, the asset management system might not always have the right locations. So what we do then is a kind of a quarterly wrap up of which assets have we got certainty around, okay, but other ones then, how can we improve the locations of it? How can we get information around, well, it's here on this street, but the access is in a different point and stuff like. So we have done cleanups of the asset register as well. We've updated it, we've switched out, we've provided additional information behind it and stuff based on the actual reports on the ground of people undertaking the works. And that's been very beneficial, I think, to provide more certainty around the asset list, I think, Richard. I think it's kind of giving your team more confidence that what they are looking at is fit for purpose and it is actually the right information, as opposed to, oh, well, look, nobody trusts it because it's all wrong and why bother trying and stuff like. So they are seeing that positive feedback, I think.
No, absolutely agreed, John. Absolutely agreed. I think we can probably move to the slide 39. And I think I've got on my slide 39, it'd be your 47, sorry, John. The
next one, is it?
Yeah, please, sorry. And it's just quite it's just a recap, last few slides, just recap where we are. And the old WhatsApp and coming in at 6 in the morning to see what happened last night is exactly where we were, to understand what was going on, to having that live report with the what three words, with the information and link to the asset. And that has been achieved to create that asset base and that information. And then, like I say, what we've moved into is a zone of the performance management piece and looking at the longer term and looking at the risk associated with some of the works and the assets in particular, and where we're going to drive our energy for the forward. And hopefully that graphic probably just summarises the journey we've gone through. And it's probably one of the only pieces that if we take Joe, really connected and using the same system as our supplier, that we can access the same information, hopefully driving safety and the efficiency of those shifts, maximising the efficiency of those shifts. And some of our shifts, we can be limited to 4 hours because of tidally influenced. So it really does, every shift, every hour counts. And that's what we're trying to drive by having this collaborative information that we can all use. And that kind of comes us to the last slide, which is just John wanted to keep in, is that gentleman's still here. He's still smiling and he's happy. And that paperwork is stored in boxes somewhere very safely. But that is what we have stopped, and that's where we took it forward and what we've achieved. And I still think, looking forward, me and John have had conversations, and Joe, about kind of what's next. What do we do with that data? How do we manipulate it? What else can we capture? So as much as this has landed, I think every year or so we've tweaked it a bit more and changed it to suit our new requirements, or just seeing how fast we can take it out. And that hopefully comes to the end, John.
Yeah, but it like and stuff. And that's kind of the initial part. Any questions? There's some of our contact details and bits and pieces and stuff. I think it's back over to Leah.
Thanks, John, and thank you, Richard and Joe, as well, for the the informative session. Those demos were really great. It's great to see exactly how the application works from sort of all parties involved. That was great. Thank you. So we are just going to be going to a 15-minute break now, just to give you a chance to get your hot drinks and a break from all the talking. And when we come back from that, we'll be going into our Q&A session. So please do feel free to think up some more questions and pop them in the chat throughout the break. So the time is now 12 minutes past 11. So we will be returning from the break at 27 minutes past. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that break. I'll just wait for John, Joe and Richard to get their cameras and mics back on before we start jumping into the question and answer session. So do feel free to keep popping your questions in the chat as you think of them, even throughout the session. We have admins in the background picking those up. And as my colleague said, if there's any questions you have that don't get answered today, or you think of them outside of today's session, you can contact myself and we'll get them answered for you and pop them up with the case study. Richard, Joe, are you around?
I'm here. Yeah.
Perfect. Do you want to just...
Richard just had to go with Tideway meetings. I think for some people in the call, you don't know that Tideway is a super sewer in London, 24 kilometres, something I was part of years ago. And Richard is now in charge of making sure that the tunnel connects in with the greater Thames Water operational system. So they're in the middle of finalising the last parts of Tideway and doing some very cool kind of commissioning works and stuff like so. Sadly, he hasn't been able to stay on for the whole call here, and he sends his apologies to everybody.
Perfect. No, that's fine. I think we've got a few questions for Richard, but we can, as I say, pop them on with the case study if he's not available to answer. That's fine. I'm just going to stop sharing the presentation so that we can see your lovely faces a bit better. Okay, perfect. So first question for John is how much information is needed on my assets to start using SymTerra for recording works undertaken?
So from that side of things, thanks for the question. The basic part of it is to go off and keep the basics right. I think one of the challenges we've had from some teams and some projects and some businesses that they don't have a full list of their assets. They don't know what's going on, and they just get overwhelmed by too vast amount of information, too big a problem and stuff. So what we very much focus in on is we just need the basics that the teams on the ground can report against those assets. So whether it's for inspections, condition surveys, even just finding the assets of verifying asset lists. And we've just kind of, for the teams on the ground, we just very simply kind of give them a list of assets. So we just need 3 basic bits of information. What's the asset number, if you have it? What's the asset discipline or system or zone, or however you want to kind of, link it by? And then a brief description of the asset itself. And sometimes that can be an asset nickname, it can be the asset manufacturer, additional information behind it, the old asset number that people might be using instead of the new one that you're moving to, or something else. And so this then means that the team on the ground, and as you saw from the mobile demo of the app, is the team on the ground can just very simply find the asset number, find the asset class, select the right one and provide an update. Asset no longer exists, it was decommissioned, it is now being moved, or it's no longer manufacturer X, it's now manufacturer Y because we replaced the drive motors and some other bits and pieces and stuff. And so that kind of creates a feedback loop into the system. And one of the kind of common asset forms we've got is a very short one of, is the asset still there? What's the condition of the asset, functioning, non-functioning, or used with caution? And then we have a drop a pin, so a location of it as well. And that makes it a feedback loop that then we can feed back into the business. This is the asset list you gave us, 1,800 assets. And of that asset list, then what is the updated location? What's the updated condition of it? Is it still on the system? So we create this feedback loop from the teams on the ground using a very simple, easy to use mobile app to be able to go off and provide an update back to the asset register. And this way, then we're going to get more details, more information behind it. That then means that we can understand the assets better. We've got more certainty in the asset. SymTerra has acted as and does act as a engineering electronic asset management system, but we also link in with the bigger systems. So for instance, Network Rail use Ellipse. So we will take a data feed out of Ellipse, we'll provide it in SymTerra, the teams on the ground go do the work on the railway, and then that thing can be re-imported back into Ellipse as well. So the idea is to go off and start the very basics, and even if it's just surveying your existing assets and just verifying your asset list, it's a very, very good starting point, and it doesn't have to be war and peace and stuff like. I can go on and on and on about this one, so I'm going to stop and go on to other questions.
No, please go ahead if you've got more to say. That's absolutely fine. Perfect. Okay, so the next question is for Joe, I think. So Joe, how difficult is it for contractors to get started with SymTerra? How's it been going since you've introduced SymTerra to lanes, and have there been sort of any grumbles at all from the team?
It's one of the easiest startups we've ever done. So Garrett, I don't know if Garrett's on here, I might embarrass him here. So Garrett done us an absolutely brilliant onboarding video, which was simple for me to view, and I sent it out to the engineers. The only issues we did have is sometimes people would log in and create their own accounts. But once everyone viewed that video that Garrett done as an onboarding, it was just a simple exercise. One of the easiest rollouts I've ever done. Any new features that come in, we always get a PDF come through, which we can view ourselves. So all that I save myself. So any new starters that we have, we do sort of mini induction when we get them out of depot. We can show them the video that we've got, and we can go through the PDFs for activities and all the features we use. Also external, if it's new things we're using, we can share that back to the Thames for the PDFs to use. So yeah, it's really good.
Have you found it's kind of increased the collaboration between yourselves and Thames when it comes to reporting?
Oh, 100%. I mean, say previously we was using 2 or 3 different systems where we'd have to merge everything onto a Word document. Creating a work package to send over for the work we done could take hours. Now I can just add a user, and all the information's there, and that takes me all of finding an email address and copying and pasting it.
Wow. So a massive time reduction for you.
Massive time reduction. So we can have conference calls. I can go in the gallery. I can go through comments, all the pictures. It's just we've only got a small headcount here for office staff of 2. With the amount of data we've got coming in, we've now got SymTerra working for us instead of us doing the work, because the data then just all comes into us, and it's all in one place. So
yeah, amazing, perfect.
More time to concentrate on other stuff, which is amazing.
Always a relief. So a question, I think probably for Richard, but I think you guys can give it a go if you fancy, from Andrew. He wants to know, has SymTerra become the asset database for Thames, and or does it take information from the main database and update after a job?
So we took the original list from the main database and stuff, and then we started bringing a feedback loop into it. So we typically would we would typically transfer in a gentle fashion back into the other systems and stuff once a quarter. So we do an asset verification side of things. So a lot of the existing larger systems, and this is kind of tied back into Thames' existing systems, and it's a massive organization. So they've got SAP, Oracle, Sage, SAP, Oracle, kind of the larger kind of systems out there, which are required, which are kind of part of the regulatory kind of requirements within the kind of the environment. And so we have to make sure that we do provide a kind of a feedback into those systems. And we've typically found that a quarterly update back into those systems to provide an updated list in a kind of a centralized location is quite key. Also, all the data is linked as a data pipeline. So we can, as a future kind of updates, that we can go off and do a live update back into those systems and stuff. And so at the moment, it's been quite simple. With a lot of existing systems, you can do a import, export using CSV, Excel files type setup. And that's been seen as being probably the most cost efficient side of things. As we know, some of these assets are, their lifespan is measured in decades in some cases. So the idea of spending a lot of money up front on doing a live real-time updates with the most expensive servers out there and so on doesn't add any value to the business. And I think we've always wanted to focus on what adds value to Thames and what makes a difference. And so we just kind of make sure that we help them comply with, have the right updates. But I think the day-to-day running, to answer kind of Andrew's question, is that SymTerra has become the central point of contact for asset information within within Richard's team in Thames Water on the operational sewer side of things. And that's because it's just kind of ease of use, accessibility. It allows Joe and other teams to go up and access what they need to access quickly and easily. A lot of asset management systems very much focus in on a lot of kind of tabulated information and not always putting that much interest or effort into capturing videos and photographs of it. And this is where, when you can just go off and pull up a gallery of an asset and show, here's 300 pictures of the last 20 visits in the last 4 years, you've got a better context and understanding of not just the asset itself, but also the surrounding areas, how was access to it, what else is around that we need to go off and kind of work with and take into consideration when doing kind of future works, whether that's decommissioning or major overhauls, replacements and bits and pieces and stuff like. So I think it's kind of, hopefully we'll start moving more into that kind of thing, that, you know, that SymTerra will become a proper fully fledged EAMS system in its entirety and stuff. But we're starting at the basics of a bottom-up approach, because that's the bit that we've always seen as being missing from the teams on the ground, and providing real-time updates from actual use of assets through to then kind of like having a proper register of everything you've got on the system. Hope that kind of answers Andrew's question.
I believe so, yeah. Perfect, thank you. So a question from Graham for Joe is, how is connectivity for live reporting when in the sewer network?
We don't actually do reports from inside the network, we do it from above ground. So if any photos are taken, they will be taken on the phone above ground or transferred and then uploaded from above ground. Yeah, that's that. I've answered your question.
And generally speaking, do you find that sort of field teams get on fine with connectivity when they're on the job, being able to kind of just upload that, not necessarily within the sewer network, but just when they're out in the field and stuff? You've not really encountered too many problems connectivity wise?
No, we've had no real issues with connectivity. All the photos come for a good quality, and yeah, no issues.
Amazing. And another question for yourself. Oh, sorry, go on, John.
Yeah. Just kind of add to that, we do have offline mode as well. Like, so when, even in central London, you sometimes don't have a very good signal. So we do have kind of offline modes that you don't need internet connectivity, bits and pieces. And you can have drafts of bits and pieces as well stored. So sometimes the teams want to start the initial part of the report, save a draft, back pocket, crack on with the work. The idea is to not distract the teams by, you must have connectivity. You must have this, that, and the other. It detracts from delivering the work safely, I think, like on the ground and stuff. Like, so that's kind of where I suppose we've made sure that we reduce the frustration for Joe's teams by not creating barriers to doing their work and stuff. Like.
Perfect, thank you, John. Another question for yourself, Joe, from Sally is, one of the slides mentioned contractor benefits. What would you recommend to other contractors with the solution? So
the contractor benefits for us, which was massive, was we do obviously a lot of compliance-based entries, and we do site-specific method statements. So you can end up going out with a pile of paper like that. So by using the forms on SymTerra, so you've got 2 or 3 people on site. Them forms are so easy to use. You can put them in drafts. You can carry on. You can do repeat selections for your gas monitoring, for anything you're using. Which can then come back as a live report. So basically, Sally, yourself, you can see what people are doing. Instead of the night crew finishes, the night crew goes home with that paperwork. The Thames Water want an update from the contractor, but Joe doesn't start back until 10 o'clock tonight. So that paper, that forms is on your dashboard. You can download it, or if Thames Water want access to your folders, they can just view everything you've done, especially with Sally, you understand with the entry numbers that we do. If, for instance, there's an issue at one end where you call out, that number doesn't go through, you can go onto SymTerra and download that report and get that number to shut that job down. Sally will understand what I mean with that. So yeah, it's the admin side of it, again, from paper going to digital, where you're not relying on waiting for someone to wake up that night and either send you a photocopy, which you might not be able to see or read properly, or to drive it down the yard and drop it off. It's all there for you waiting at 4 o'clock in the morning just to download and send, or they would have got access to it.
Perfect. And sort of from your point of view, as a contractor, say that there was a contractor that was working with SymTerra, but it wasn't necessarily kind of linked and in collaboration with the water company as well. Do you think, from your point of view, it'd still be beneficial for the contractor to use SymTerra even without the water company kind of introducing it to them?
100%. I mean, data is key. So, anybody that wants data, I've got a director that wants everything. Please can I have that now? You've got it straight at hand, and you literally can go on your phone and you can send an email like that.
Amazing.
So instead of having to take that, take it, photocopy it, try and send it over, it's that simple of a push of a button.
Perfect. And then this one might be one for you, John. Robert wants to know, what's the data storage requirements? All the photos and videos, I'm assuming, will take up a lot of space. Oh, you're just on mute, John.
Sometimes that's a better answer. You can just imagine I've got a beautiful answer for you, Robert. So I was kind of starting. We're not an old company. We're a new kind of company. So what we've done is we've leveraged the best of technology. We got very lucky. We got supported by Google for startup side of things here in London, and so we kind of ended up in the Google bucket space and side of things. And we identified that the core part for our business was to make sure that we don't rely on third parties. We don't rely on lots of extra processing. So all of we've built our software in-house. We've got our in-house team. Everything is processed, managed, stored in the UK and stuff, like for critical national infrastructure work side of things. But it also means that every time you press save on SymTerra, on a photograph or video, it goes straight into the servers here. And that means that our costs are significantly reduced. There's very little kind of cost side of things. And we've optimized our system around enabling our clients to have unlimited amounts of data, photographs and videos and stuff. Because we know that if we limit communication, we limit the capturing of data that's valuable to a business. And I think one of the stats that we've seen in the built world is, I think it's something like 97% of data goes unused, and there's only 3% you actually use, but we don't know what 3% we're using. And so what we need to do is make sure that everything is available to our client when they need it, where they need it and stuff. And so we've kind of very much built in asset store or data storage into a core part of our business, the photographs, the videos, the raw data, to make sure that that is unlimited to our clients and doesn't hinder them in any way, shape or form. So we've worked very closely with our partners, Google, to optimize databases, data sets, to make sure that we have got optimized further. So what we've seen in past systems and past products that we've used in roles is that the data set gets so big, you then click update and you're waiting for a spinning wheel of death to slowly get around. You have to go make a cup of tea or take a meeting and come back, and then there's the update. We want to make it as quick as a Google search on the system. So Google searches the entire internet. You can find anything, anywhere. We want to be that quick. We want our users to be able to just quickly type in asset 355 and boom, there's every single update, every permit, every photograph, every video, every single thing up there straight away. And we've always taken, I suppose this is where we come from the industry, is we want to be able to have this live dashboard on a screen in the meeting. And as we're talking through it, as we want to look at, show me everything that Joe and his team were working on last week, boom, there it is. Show me all the photographs from this particular asset to this kind of area. If we want to talk with a local council around traffic management works in an area, or there's an upcoming major event, then this is kind of where you've got that rapid stuff coming through. What we have always focused on is that we're in a meeting, we're trying to use the information, we've got Joe and Richard and all the right people in the room. We don't want to be the system holding them up, waiting for something to update, and then something crashes, and then people just give up on it and they go back to using WhatsApp. This is why WhatsApp has done so well, is that it's faster. And that's kind of where we've kind of very much kind of focused our performance on around that side of things to do it as quick as possible, I think. So yeah, I think the data storage requirements basically is unlimited, which is scary sounding, given like, when we saw the stats from Joe's team about was it 40 something thousand photographs and stuff. Like it's a vast volume of information that's being captured, but the value that's been added to the business, to the product, to Thames' system is invaluable and stuff like so. Hope that kind of answers it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, they do take up a lot of space. Just see the rest of it. Yeah. There's a lot of space being taken up, but storage specs and bits and pieces coming down. So we are seeing that the cost to us is negligible in every kind of way and stuff like so. It's not an issue to us.
Perfect. Thank you, John. And then we've got a question for Richard, but I'll ask you, John, and see if you're able to cover it in his absence. So what was step one for actually getting SymTerra implemented at Thames Water? Who were the kind of key people to get involved?
I think I suppose the key people from our side and ours is a software product, it is the IT department. It is those guys to come on board to understand what is the problem from Richard's team. So it's kind of like understanding what's the issues, what the problems are that they wish to solve. Do they have anything in their own system to go off and provide that as a solution to them? So you don't need them to work with another provider. And then if there is a gap, what is that gap? And then how would SymTerra go off and do it? So if there's IT people kind of on the call, you're looking at a vast, estate of different software, different providers, different kind of capabilities. And what you don't want to do is have too much overlap, too many systems doing the same thing, and then just getting confused and lacking bits and pieces. So it was a very much engagement with the IT department, with the business development team, the architect side of things, security, and making sure that everything kind of worked well on that side. That's kind of outside of Richard's team, because Richard's team then are very much kind of the core part of it, in the terms of they're the ones who are needing help with something. They're looking for a solution, and it's down for the IT department to support operations in providing that. But you do have two teams. One is experts in operations, and the other is experts in IT, and they have to kind of work together. Like, okay, what have we got? How can we work together? I think the teams work really well on that side of things, and brought together kind of a better understanding as to, okay, we've got a few gaps in our existing stuff. This is what we need to fill, and we're then assessing SymTerra and other systems as part of that assessment, and then what is the benefit to the business, because at the end of the day it has to be to the benefit of Thames. I think from our side it was that data pipeline, it was the data ownership side of things. We don't lock information in our system, so the information goes across to Thames, they can use it. It's available to them in anything from SharePoint up to data sets and stuff available to their teams to go off and use and stuff. So it was a long journey, I think, as Richard kind of said when he was on the call earlier. There is a lot to do. The larger the organization, the more complex it is, and especially with a company that's, been in operation for some form or another for over 200 years, it's a lot of stuff to go on, to kind of, moving parts to kind of get right and stuff like so. There's a lot of people to get on board to provide briefings, presentations, to bring up speed as to what we do, what Richard's challenges are, and then how we can kind of work collaboratively together to go off and bring that together.
Perfect. Thanks, John. And overall, sort of from step one of kind of Thames approaching SymTerra to it now being kind of business as usual for Thames, how long did that process take overall, would you say?
I'm always going to say it's too long, obviously. I'm an impatient person. I think it's kind of take into account like the size of the organization, the length of time it's been in existence, bits and pieces, and all the rest of it. Like, it took shorter than I'd expected. Similar size organizations take longer in some ways. I think the focus for Thames on delivery and bits and pieces has been a fantastic help to us. I think that focus has been great, that actually it's what's good, what's best for business has been the most important thing, what's best for kind of delivering kind of a service. So that's been quite beneficial to us, and that's helped move things on. Whereas in other companies, if the focus is not on the core deliverables and the core deliverables within the business, then that becomes quite difficult then to get systems adopted and so on and so forth, like stuff. So I would say, I think it was like 3 maybe to 6 months, I think tops. I think we had initial pilots and bits and pieces starting it off, beneficial use, and then kind of going into full rollout and commissioning of it and stuff. So we had a process to follow. I think what you can't do is push a system out without it being tested and verified to the entire of the organization across the entire network, and everything falls over. It's a reputational damage to us as well. That if things are not adopted, if it's not understood, if it's not fit for purpose, let's be honest. And so that's kind of where we started working initially with Richard's team, small groups, and then moving on into kind of the contractors like Joe and bits and pieces, when we had something that we knew was working and was providing benefit to the business. And then it was the next stage of rollout from there.
Perfect, thank you. And from your perspective, John, what's kind of your vision for SymTerra and Thames? Kind of what do you see it being kind of 5 years down the line? Are you planning on, I know you said that you're looking at continuing development and things like that. So are you looking into kind of expanding it to be able to report on other areas of a business, like pollutions, for example, or?
Yeah, I think we've got, within that side of things, we're starting to build a large data set of information across the assets across 110,000 kilometers of sewer network. And we're providing quite a lot of insights into bits and pieces and stuff. And that information, we're hoping to kind of move forward into data analytics a lot more, and providing insights into information, providing predictive tool sets to Thames Water within their asset side of things, helping them generate business cases for asset improvements, being able to spot trends that are happening within information. So for instance, within traffic management, good and bad practice side of things, within assets, which ones are having, for instance, ladders replacement side of things for access into the network and other bits and pieces. How can we do that safely? How can we improve on things? Which assets are doing well? Which ones aren't? Which areas, parts of catchments are having more issues? Using information like what Joe's team is doing as well, and to go off and provide, I suppose, a better, safer environment for Thames's team to work, better planning, and be able to go off and optimize our business around kind of service delivery and so on. So I think it's the analytics and the data side of things. That's a big part of it. And then kind of moving into other areas, IoT devices integration, where we can take data from assets themselves, SCADA systems and so on, and then provide that into SymTerra to link in, that I can click on an asset and not just see the updates from SymTerra, but also see the updates from the system, temperature controls, pressures, RPM, spindle speeds, etc., and bits and pieces and stuff like that. So providing even more insights into what's kind of going on across the network, as well as kind of integrating further with other systems that are important within their business and stuff. So I think it's got a lot of potential going forward to add even further value to Thames Water, to reduce operational costs, provide a higher operational percentage and bits and pieces of their assets across the network and stuff like. So yeah, we're seeing some very interesting use cases starting to come up and evolve as we're kind of going on and working in that area.
Perfect, amazing, thank you so much. And then there was a final question for Richard, similar to Joe's question, but how has it been received by Richard's team on the ground? Obviously Richard isn't here, but I don't know if you've had much feedback from the Thames teams themselves, John, on how it's been received.
I'm obviously going to say fantastic things. I think, Joe, do you want to cover that one from your teams and stuff as well?
From my teams, yeah, it's again, it used to be that they'd have to do an email and attach photos, which sometimes wasn't the simplest thing to do, and maybe if they couldn't send X amount of photos, they'd have to send multiple emails. With the way it's done now, is because SymTerra is available to all on site, they can all do a separate report. So it takes the pressure off one person putting it all together in the thing. So majority of my teams are teams of 3 and teams of 5. So they can split the workload between them, sending the data now, instead of just one person sitting there trying to do it on a phone and attach pictures. So yeah, overall, very happy. Yeah. And I get all the good pictures back and the good notes, and all I do is download it and take the credit.
Amazing, perfect.
Yeah, I think Richard's team said they were using it for professional development side of things. So different members of the team were doing the reports themselves, and that was then helping develop them and their career going forward as well. So they weren't just doing one job, they were able to go off and do the report for the day by themselves and be able to go off and use that then as evidence and as part of their professional development side of things. So that's quite useful. for the guys who are looking to go off and develop themselves further, that they can all jump in and do it. It's not just stuck with only one person, because the app is only linked to one person's name, and you can't add another user. I think Joe could have said about taking time to add people. It's quite quick and easy to go off and do that and stuff. So that part is, that professional development has been kind of a weird one for us, I suppose, that we've never kind of expected that, but it is seeing that people are using that then as part of evidence of going, look, I've done the following inspections, this is what I was in charge of, I was making sure that traffic management was set up in place, I did my safety observations, my tours, my bits and pieces and stuff like. So that part of evidencing your own CPD has been a kind of a surprise to us, that people are kind of doing that way. But it's actually quite beneficial for the teams, that as people progress in their careers and they want to evidence that and supporting it, and that's where they've kind of been using that and giving Joe better pictures then, because they don't want to have it being reviewed with crap pictures. So.
Yeah. Amazing. Perfect. Okay, well, I think that brings us kind of towards the end of the session. So thank you both again for the hard work you've put into today, and for being here and the great answers to the various questions. We hope that the audience has found it engaging and interesting. We'll shortly be popping a poll into the chat, so if you could just let us know how you found today's session in that poll, that would be great. It really helps us kind of shape these future showcases, so we know what works for you guys and what the sort of important information for the audience is from these showcases. Yeah, so thank you again to sort of Thames and SymTerra and Lanes for sharing their sort of project learnings and being so open with us today. Oh, there we go. My colleague has just put the poll in the chat for you to fill out. As my colleague said at the start of the session, we'll be posting the recording of today's showcase on our platform along with the case study, and that should be available within the next week. Any questions that were sort of for Richard or haven't been answered during today's event will be uploaded alongside these two, and we always post about it on LinkedIn when we do upload the showcase and case study. So keep an eye on our LinkedIn for that one. So yeah, perfect. Thank you everyone again, and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.